Welcome to part 2 of the Pinewoods tutorial. Let's recap. This is how it plays out. Basically, we give you the vocabulary plus the story and the method, which should equal our shared success. So let's break it down. You're teaching 5 to 6 new vocabulary items per session over the course of an 8-week period. You're first going to introduce the vocabulary one phrase at a time. And then you're going to write the phrase on the board and then translate it. Teach a gesture, if there is one. The idea is to practice the phrase with commands. For example, use the word flower, eat the flower, throw the flower, give the flower away, etc. Think out of the box and check for understanding, which leads us to the story and the method that we use, and it's called teaching proficiency through storytelling and reading. But remember, it's really about asking the story versus just telling it. So what are you going to do? You're going to introduce the story one sentence at a time. It'll help everyone, including you, because you're going to be constantly dialoguing and questioning them, which should test their comprehension. And then you're going to slowly incorporate their story into your story. It'll keep the dialogue going, and it'll make the stories more interesting. And now, at that point, the class is all about them, which is the goal. So what are you doing? You're actually thinking out of the box to make, all this come full circle. Because there is no box, only circles. We help them remember this new vocabulary through part of our technique that we use called circling. What are you going to do? You're actually going to circle in on who or what that you need to talk about. And for every statement that you need to hone in on, you're going to ask 6 to 10 questions around each circled vocabulary item. Let's look at some examples of some circles. Here's some typical vocabulary items. However, before you circle in and start asking questions about things, make sure that they understand the meaning of the words. Remember, they may not, understand the concept. So you'll need to translate, what the word actually is. And translate to guarantee comprehension. Write the word on the board. That being said, do not assume that they understand the basic meaning of the word. Make sure. Some may be brand new to the language. You just don't know. So you need to actually practice the phrases by asking questions. And get extra repetitions of the words, by repeating the student answers. And now, you can actually begin building some, sentence comprehension by circling. So let's circle around Robert, from the earlier example. And notice that you're only working one column at a time. Notice it's the exact same vocabulary as from before. Notice how repetition helps a lot. So what do you want to do? You're going to try to introduce these sentences one at a time, very slowly. So here's some examples. Robert wants to buy a car. Does Robert want to buy a car? Yes or no? Notice that that's close-ended. You're boxing them in. And then what are you doing? You're reaffirming, yes, Robert wants to buy a car. Does Bill want to buy a car? Yes or no? And you look at him and you go, no, Bill does not want to buy a car. Robert wants to buy a car. Follow up, does Robert or Bill want to buy a car? That's an either-or question. Again, Robert wants to buy a car. You're reaffirming, And here's an open-ended question. What does Robert want to buy? He wants to buy a car. Again, you're reiterating, these points over and over. And try to have fun with it. Notice that you're asking yes and no questions, and either-or questions, as well as open-ended questions. Again, have fun with it. The point is to get them to hear you say the words 70+ times. You'll see that repetition helps get the language to sound right. When you have someone like you, talking with them. Repetition gets the language to sound natural to them. But they have to hear it many times, so you have to go slowly. Again, that's it. In a nutshell, you're introducing and practicing some vocabulary, you're building a story together, you're checking for understanding, and suggesting any supplemental activities based upon, each person's needs. So now what? Just start. Don't worry. We're here to help. And that concludes part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to the following: